up, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of On the Bluff. I'm your host, Christian Fowler. Joining me, as always, my co-host, Gabe Kuhn, our producer, Kenny Stubblefield. Fellas, how we doing tonight?
I'm hanging in there, brother. I have no real complaints. I did tell you off the air, I'm going to bring this on the air for everyone. Everyone needs to know. I've let it get unruly, but honestly, it came in nice. The beard is going to be trimmed by the time you see me next. I'm giving up.
Wow.
Kenny's kind of disappointed in me.
I am disappointed.
But it's getting warm outside. Like it's time. It's time.
But
You can't just
so
rock
nice.
the long beard all summer.
Like this. It was a couple of weeks ago where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to trim this down. But then I combed it out after a shower, and I'm like, wait a second. It's not the shape ain't bad. Like it didn't look bad, so I just kept it rolling.
Yeah. I just think there's some things you could do to make it not so crazy, but all I want to say is we're still missing. I want to see the mustache come back, Christian. Just the mustache. Just the mustache.
Eventually, it'll happen. Maybe
it'll happen. Yeah.
It's just an aggressive look. You know,
it really is.
It's like so in your face and aggressive.
Go back and look. I feel like a year ago.
I feel like I put off energy that I don't have when it's just the mustache. You know.
Well, what about the goatee, though? You know, we've had this.
The goatee is kind of just a staple of me now. I mean, we're 5 years deep on the goatee, so I'm kind of synonymous with it.
We need to get some merch going for the On the Bluff pod, where my beard's out and you have the goatee next to you've seen those
outlines?
Yeah,
be great.
Absolutely,
I think it'd be a good look.
I do want to say this. I have the Grizzlies game going right now. And Jaren Jackson Jr. just went out with a completely sprained ankle. He limped off the court, rolled it all the way to the ground. He's in the locker room. So shit.
You can just turn it off now. That game's over. It's good.
I'm like kind of sick to my stomach. So
I'll keep everybody
updated, but he walked off the court on his own power, but
it
didn't look good. It didn't look good.
Well, let's flip it a little bit more positive.
Yes.
Since Kenny just rained on the beginning of the episode a little bit. How was the weekend, fellas? What'd you have going on? I'm assuming we probably know what Gabe had going on.
What do you think I had going on, dude? What do you think?
Being a new dad, like
no, dude, I'm a deadbeat. I didn't do any. I'm just kidding. Yeah, you're right. That's what I did.
Let's see. I hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah.
I was in Arkansas, up in the Fayetteville area, hanging out with my in-laws, my sister-in-law and nephew. He had a couple of games, so we went up there late Friday after work and came home early Sunday before the Tigers game. And so it was a very, very busy, quick weekend. And so I'm still recovering. Like I'm still very tired, very exhausted.
Yeah, we had a friend in town this weekend, so it was kind of a long one. Friday night, everybody was over at our house. Saturday, we had the third annual Mardi Gras parade in Olive Branch, which Anna Ruth's mom organizes. So
nice.
It was actually a lot of fun. I didn't get to go last year, but it was a lot of fun. A lot of people there that I hadn't seen in a long time. It was nice
to have
cool.
a Mardi Gras celebration in good weather. I can tell you that.
Yes.
Every time I've been out to like a Mardi Gras celebration, has been in St. Louis, and it's usually like 20 degrees, just brutal.
Yeah, no, it was nice. And then we left the Mardi Gras parade, came back over here, did crawfish Saturday night. So it was a very, very social weekend. So yesterday relaxed a little bit, but it was busy. It was social, but it was
crawfish once a weekend. I mean, honestly,
yeah. That's the second time this month. We did the Super Bowl and then we did Saturday. So
I legitimately think that Christian and his group of friends have kept the crawfish business in good standing in the United States of America. It's like,
not unfair.
Where do you get them, by the way? Where do you go? Like you get them, I'm sure live, but where?
There's a gas station like 20 minutes from here where my friends' parents have always gotten
decent prices, because usually it's like upcharge pretty
It was like, I think this time I want to say it was around like $3.75 or $4 a pound,
Oh,
like
okay.
36 pounds. So I mean, it's
Okay.
like 130, $140 for a
I can
sack. So I
handle
mean,
that though, as
yeah,
opposed to
it's not
$7 a pound.
it's not terrible. And my friend's dad is like completely goated at cooking them. He's been doing it forever. I mean, we've been having crawfish boils since I can remember. I think 2 years ago, maybe we all pitched in and bought him a real nice crawfish boiler. So I mean, he's got the setup. It's perfect.
Got that
Perfect.
loco cooker.
Yeah, that is actually what it is. It
Those
is
things are
loco.
nice, man. Even the
It
flat
is.
top locos. I want
Yeah,
one.
it's really nice.
They're
Really nice.
expensive as shit though.
I think it was like $500 or $600, and we split it between
I'm
like
talking about
10
the
or
big
15
flat
of us.
top though, like that everybody has.
Okay, okay.
The
Not a
flat tops are
boiler.
pretty
Yes.
expensive.
Yes, no, they're a little more expensive. But yeah, that was it for the weekend. Let's any other notes? Y'all want to go ahead and transition, talk some
Let's
Memphis
do it.
basketball?
Let's do it, man.
So Memphis had what we kind of deemed as their toughest test for the rest of the season against UAB. Down in the first half, down by 6 going into halftime. Kind of looked like, what are we going to do here? Are they going to pull this one out? Is this going to be another disappointing loss? They hang 52 in the second half, outscore UAB by 13 points. Dane Danger, who got up for the first UAB game, got up for this one, 16 points, 17 rebounds. PJ Haggerty with 25 points, Colby Rogers with 21 points. Really, that second half, Memphis was just hitting on all cylinders. Like I said, 52 points to 39, outscored them by 13. And all your best players play like this, and this is the outcome that we've kind of come to expect from Memphis when they're firing on all cylinders, and that's what was happening in the second half. And now they move on to the last couple games of the season.
Yeah, I was very close to going on Wikipedia and making a Dane Danger page, and putting he's 6'9", 255 pounds, plays center for the Memphis Tigers from Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. His family life, father and mother, doing all that, and he has one son. His name's Yaxel Lindeborg. That's what I wanted to do after this game,
Yeah,
but
fair.
I decided not to. But damn, brother, Dane Danger and PJ Haggerty are at this point where they're just taking turns.
Yeah.
Taking turns, just
they are
getting after whatever opponent they're playing. First half, it was all Dane Danger. Second half, PJ Haggerty, 19 points, getting to the free throw line at will. Andy Kennedy, after games like that's what All-Americans do. I couldn't do shit about it. I had no answers for PJ Haggerty. And that's what we've seen since Dane Danger got in the starting lineup and everything else. So I was just damn impressed with their best players continue to play like their best players in the biggest moments. We saw it early in the season. We're seeing it now in conference play when they play UAB. But that was a hell of a performance from Dane Danger. I don't want to take anything away from PJ Haggerty, but to see a guy who there's a bunch of trash talk back and forth. He didn't want to approach it. And
God, I love that so
sometimes you
much.
could try to play a little bit too hard, get a little bit over your skis. 16 points, 17 boards, passed well out of the post, super efficient from the floor. I was damn impressed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is obviously, like we talked about, this is the best win they're going to have for the rest of the regular season. But it is great that they passed this test. Is way too strong of a word, but it's good that they made it through this with a win, because you rewind it a little bit. I know how we're talking about it now, but that first half, it was a little sketchy. And I know Memphis has had a lot of games where they've started slow and they've been more of a second half team, but it just kind of had that feeling of they cannot afford to drop this game in this scenario with this being the best team left on the schedule. So a lot of credit to them for the way that they played in that second half. Like you said, Dane Danger set the tone, played under control the entire game, didn't let like the trash talk, emotions and stuff like that get to him. Really helped shut down Yaxel Lindenborg. I think he shot like 40% from the floor. It just wasn't.
He was off the floor
factor.
Most of the game. Couldn't play.
Yeah, he
was in foul
wasn't
trouble.
a big factor in that game. I think he had 6 boards, and like we said, Dane had 17. So it was just one of those games where they had to win it. Obviously, that's every game in this conference schedule for them for the most part, but for them to be able to pull it off in that fashion, look really impressive, star players firing on all cylinders. Like to me, it is a great sign for the next couple of games and then into the conference tournament that PJ's playing this well, Dane's playing this well. Colby had a spike game that he hasn't had in a while. Tyrese is still, I know some people have speculated, is it the injury that he was dealing with, why he hasn't been quite as effective scoring the ball, but he was still solid in that game. So I think they are in great shape for where they need to be for the rest of the season.
Yeah,
And
I love. Sorry,
go ahead. You go ahead,
I
brother.
just love. I just think with Colby, it's like Colby Rogers and Dane Danger were the ones that kind of kept the game afloat in that first half, right? Dane played all but 1 minute in the first half. Played 19 straight minutes, got the second foul, I think, or third foul, and they took him out of the game to end the half. But Dane and Colby absolutely kept them in that game. Going into the half, they were only down by 6 points, and so it was like they were down by double digits, then kind of fought back, and you can start to see some of the trends, right? Like you can start to see some of the things that were the game plan and the way that they were attacking UAB were starting to flesh itself out in the game as the game went into the halftime. But it is crazy to me how it has been a couple of games since we've seen that Colby Rogers spike game, that Colby Rogers game where he just goes lights off or lights out. And we've said this on this show and on other shows on BCM. If Colby Rogers is on, this team is very, very tough to stop. Very tough to stop. And it was good to see him do what he did last night.
My favorite stat is he's the only one who hit a 3 on the team. He was 5 for 9, and the entire team was 5 for 17, which also feeds my narrative of Dane Danger and PJ Haggerty as a duo might be probably a top 5 duo in the country at erasing problems for their team. Because I thought they turned the ball over incessantly, especially in the first 10 minutes of the game. That was ugly. I thought that they got into foul trouble, especially early in the second half. That was ugly. They didn't shoot the 3 ball well. But all those problems were erased by the end of the game because Dane Danger and PJ Haggerty were on. That's something that I think, just going back to what I've continued to say, that them being erasers is so damn important for them in a tournament setting, and why I'm very bullish on this team if they get a decent seed, which we could talk about here in just a bit. That's why I'm very bullish on this team being able to advance and being terrifying, being a thorn in the side for the best teams in the country in the NCAA tournament.
I agree.
Yeah, Gabe, we were talking about metrics a little bit pre-show, and you surprised me with something that I wasn't sure of. So drop that real quick on everybody, and I want to discuss that.
Net rankings, we know Tigers sit at about 45. They went up 1 spot from beating UAB, and net ranking is the official NCAA ranking, and that's what they use for the selection committee. They switched over in 2018-19 because they previously used RPI. And RPI is resume based. It's about strength of schedule versus expected. Are you winning? Are you losing games? The difference between the net and RPI largely is, for a team like Memphis, if you're not beating teams by a whole lot in conference, bad teams, the net will punish you for that. RPI didn't punish you for that. RPI is like, you won the game, let's move on, let's wipe the slate clean. But they switched over to net from RPI in 2018-19. But I did a little thing, and I went back and looked at RPI because it used to be the end-all, be-all in college basketball when we got to resume time, tournament time. Take a gander right now. If you're out there just enjoying yourself, watching the show, take your phone out and look up RPI in college basketball and look where the Tigers are placed. 45th in the net. They're 5th overall according to the RPI metric. Now, that means nothing because RPI has no consideration for the selection committee. But I found that pretty damn interesting. All of the resume metrics love the Tigers. All of the advanced analytics and predictive metrics hate the Tigers. I think, again, as we've been talking about, finding some happy medium for all of these things that we consider on Selection Sunday is the best way to go.
Yeah, and it just shows you that there's no true rhyme or reason or wrong or right. Like, there's just so many different ways that you can rank teams, whether that's the net or Ken Palm or Bart Torvik or the RPI or the AP Top 25. And there's pretty stark contrast, but between where Memphis lands on all those ranking lists. Like you said, in the net they're 45, in the RPI they're 5, in the AP Top 25 they're 16 after the latest ranking. So it's all over the place. I don't think I would consider them the fifth best team in the country.
No.
But is
why
that
RPI is not used anymore? Don't get it twisted. Like,
exactly. But I wouldn't consider them the fifth best team in the country. But I think it's equally as crazy to consider them the 46th best team in the country. And I think, like you said, there's a happy medium of weighting one 100% and weighting another one that it means nothing. Doesn't really do much because they're skewed. They're different. There's different stats and advanced metrics that go into making those numbers. And so balancing everything, I think, makes a lot more sense because where Memphis is in the top 25 at 16 is probably about where they should fall in these metrics. That's about where they land in the country. In my opinion, probably somewhere between 10 to 17 is where Memphis lands among the top teams in the country. 46 is insane. Fifth is a little rich for my liking just because of some of the competition.
Rich, quite frankly.
That's up there. But it's just like it's one pendulum swing to the next. There's no middle ground. There's no happy medium like you talked about. And I think it depends on what you look at, but it shades your perspective of college basketball so 100%. Much because you have people that are locked in on the net and they're like, this is it. This is the end all be all. Same thing with the top 25. Same thing with Ken Palm as it's been for years. Like people just latch on and make one 100% truth and the rest meaningless when really we need to find some way to where they all kind of balance each other out.
If you just looked at the net, you'd think Memphis is on the bubble. Like, that's what you would think.
Correct.
You'd be like, it's going to be an uphill battle for them to make the tournament. They're locked in, brother. There's no question. And also, you would look at it and you'd say, well, Mizzou is 32 spots better than the University of Memphis right now. You know what happened first game of the season? Memphis beat Mizzou. You would say North Carolina is a better team than Memphis because they're ranked ahead, 42nd to 45th. North Carolina has one quad one win. Memphis is 6-2 in the quad one.
Michigan State at 11.
Again,
who Memphis also beat.
You have to find a happy medium with these things. And this is what I have latched onto and at least hope. I think largely from what I have heard and gathered around the committee, those advanced metrics, Ken Palm, Bart Torvik, they come into consideration when you're talking about bubble teams or, okay, we're trying to find the last 1 or 2 seed.
Right.
Memphis is going to be in that 6-7 range if everything goes well for the rest of the year and they don't drop some nasty one. My hope is that they just sort of use the resume for Memphis for the most part.
Yeah.
And I don't think those advanced metrics should sway them all that much. I really don't think they should.
No, I think what you said was a perfect point. Like they use those for more of those bubble teams, those teams that are close, and it's like, okay, let's look at all these advanced stats and metrics and kind of break it down.
If you're on the bubble, who should be in, who should be out? Well, they're 49th in the net. They're really on the edge of, but this team's 37th. Probably lean to the team that's 37th in the net.
Yeah.
Do you think we put too much weight and emphasis on what those metric rankings are because they update so frequently? They after every single game, you can move up and down on the net and in the Ken Maya's the
yes.
Do you think we put too much weight in it just because it updates so regularly?
Yes. I also think the weight we put in it is a little misplaced because I don't think it takes into consideration human nature and just like how a midweek game on Tuesday on the road at Rice could go for a team like Memphis. It's just I don't think we take into consideration other factors. Win margin means too much. Resume seems to mean too little. I think that obviously they're always trying to update how they're selecting teams and where they're placing teams, how they're seeding teams. I think they need to go back to the drawing board a tad bit this offseason.
You know what I would love?
Teams like Memphis, it may not be Memphis every year that's in this position. It could be St. Mary's in the future or somebody else. I wouldn't wish this on another team. Because this is very frustrating to follow.
You know what I would love is if the selection committee would put out kind of their algorithm or their equation for how they pick teams, right? Like, hey, listen, when we sit down and we pick teams for the NCAA tournament, we put this percentage of weight behind the metric rankings. We put this amount behind the wins over the bubble. We put this much emphasis behind the resume. This is how much we do, because I wonder if it's if we give it if we give it too much emphasis, and the selection committee is like, brother, it makes up like 20% of how we decide teams. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's really about it. Like, that it's not as big and as in depth as y'all think it is. We'll see. I mean, obviously, if the Tigers are a 9 seed coming into the NCAA tournament,
that would be
then
ridiculous.
we go. Right. It'd be like, brother, like they are the 16th team in the country.
Part of me, and this is not my original thought, so I want to give credit where credit's due. Jeffrey Wright at 9290 ESPN and David Cobb were talking last Thursday about this. You know, like, let's compare this to like college football. Like, the net is similar to S&P Plus at ESPN because that's referenced at committee time for the 12-team playoff. It would be like letting S&P Plus run everything.
Right.
Run a whole, like, make you sway your opinion. Like, S&P Plus, like, Ole Miss was second for most of the year.
Nope, nobody even talks about that.
You know what I mean?
Honestly.
Like, that like, net to me is similar, but I think net is weighted more by the committee in basketball than an S&P Plus is weighted by football. So, again, we'll see how it plays out. Maybe we're making a fuss about not that much. Maybe they'll be ranked higher than we expect, but our expectations pretty low at this moment, considering the way that they've been treated by the advanced analytics.
Yeah, no, I think we'll be able to see pretty clearly how much stock they do or do not put into it. But speaking of stock, let's switch gears and talk a little bit of NFL Combine. Talk about Seth Hennigan and Rock Taylor, who could have possibly helped their stock over the weekend. What did we think of their performances in Indy?
I think it's a good sign for Seth Hennigan when I just go on social media and a majority of the tweets are like, who's this kid from Memphis?
Yeah.
Shit, man. But he did a hell of a job, brother. He told me last Monday when I had him on the show, he's like, I'm not going to embarrass myself. I don't think I'm going to, like, shine. But to me, I thought that was shining. 4.78, 4.77 in the 40 was better than he expected. Jumped well, showed some athleticism. But the on-field workout portion, the throwing portion, was really where I thought he made himself a draft pick. Like, this is the last big checklist item outside of, like, interviews and top 30 visits for guys like him. And I thought this was a really good job interview for him because he threw with anticipation, got some speed behind the balls he was throwing. And I think the best he was, in my opinion, and this is, I don't think I'm being biased because you've heard my opinions on Seth in the past as an NFL prospect. I'm not super high on him. This honestly showed me from a ball placement standpoint, he is probably one of the best in this class from a ball placement standpoint. Just that one little thing. All the other things drag him down to a certain extent. But he was placing the ball better than anybody I saw this weekend. Didn't have the rocket arm like Jalen Milroe throwing a cannon 75 yards downfield. He would drop it in a bucket 55 yards downfield instead.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that we might not have thought enough about or talked about enough is the fact that the top quarterbacks don't really throw at the combine anymore. That opens the door for some of these guys that are, potential late round guys, UDFA guys. It gives them an opportunity to have more eyes on them because typically back in the day, 5-10 years ago, every quarterback threw. And nobody paid attention to small school guys or guys that they had never heard their name in national headlines. You were really only watching the big name guys, but excuse me. Now there really aren't any of those. There aren't many big name guys that are throwing at the combine. I mean, Jackson Dart threw a little bit. Will Howard threw, which was pretty ugly.
Shit.
He looked Jalen Milroe, like you mentioned, threw. But, there weren't many quarterbacks that threw, and that gave Seth an opportunity to say, look, if I can show up a little bit because a lot of these guys were decently off, it gives me an opportunity for just like you're saying, Gabe, like to go on social media and see his name popping up and have people, like, who is this guy? We've never really seen this guy before. And so he did very well for himself. And then let's talk a little bit about Rock Taylor, because we were really concerned about the long speed with him, the 40-yard dash. I think I said it on your show last week. Like, if he was in the high 4.4s or low 4.5s, like, I would be extremely impressed, because I was expecting more high 4.5s, low 4.6s. And he busted out a 4.49, which absolutely blew my mind, because I don't think we've gotten to see a ton of his long speed. But kind of like you're talking about with Seth having some things that drag him down as far as just raw athleticism, Rock had some things that dragged him down. Vertical at 30.5 is not great. Broad jump at 10 foot 2 inches.
Tell us what you told us before the show started about the 30-inch the vertical.
I jumped to 27.5.
Christian, when did you jump at 29, 30?
Me? Yeah. 7th grade at the Manning Passing Academy. It's like 29, something like that. But
sorry, Rock.
For real though, it needed to be said.
I've got this pulled up and on NFL.com. His athleticism score was ranked like 31st out of receivers at the combine. Which, if you would have told me going into it that he ran a 4.49, I would have said he's probably going to be like top 15, top 20 in athleticism, because I would have thought his vertical, his broad jump, kind of the centerpieces of his game being more of a jump ball receiver would be pretty solid, and they drug him down.
Are we allowed to just like go back and like just say I was wrong? I missed the mark on Rock Taylor so bad. Not on Seth. I think Seth did sort of similar to what I thought he would do, maybe a little bit better, exceeded my expectations, but all of his strengths were his strengths.
Yeah.
It was flipped for Rock. If you would have told me that he was going to run well, but his athleticism numbers were going to be down, I'd be like, no, that's the wrong way. I think he's going to run poorly, but his athleticism is going to be up. He'll jump a 39 vert and a crazy broad and show how explosive he is, because that's how he looks on film. But it was the complete opposite. I don't know what that was, but listen, regardless of what Rock did or didn't do at the NFL Combine, we know his path into the NFL. You're going to be a teamer, and you're going to have to stick on a team that way. But I thought he probably turned a couple of heads by running a 4.49. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Maybe there's some teams late in day 3 that are saying, okay, maybe if a couple more guys come off the board, he could be available to us, in that 7th round undrafted free agent territory.
Yeah. All right. Well, that wraps it up for the first segment. So we are going to take a quick break, and we will be back on the other side with the Hot 3.
The number 1 best player in the league, the NBA MVP award right now, one Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, SGA of the Oklahoma City Thunder, is the odds-on favorite. Real or counterfeit, SGA is your NBA MVP.
Real. I believe it's going to happen. I believe it may even be unanimous. He's got the benefit of Nikola Jokic being the second best odds, despite it's probably Nikola Jokic's best season ever.
Yes.
Fatigue does set in with NBA voters and writers. So SGA is going to win this. He probably should win it, but statistically, Jokic is the best player that's ever walked the face of the earth.
To me, the MVP should be Nikola Jokic. I understand the fatigue. I understand that SGA is going to win. Miss me with that. Jokic should be the MVP.
Tune in to the $2 Sports Show with Rusty Witten and Drew Gann every Tuesday and Thursday live at 12 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
I just think as a fan base, we have to be appreciative of what we have, bro. Like, we have a big 3 on this team of guys that we drafted. We get so excited about transactions and trading for guys and signing guys and free agency and spending over the tax. And I've always thought that it's absolutely crazy that we are penalizing our GM for absolutely nailing the draft. If you want to have conversations about whether our big 3 makes a lot of sense, I'm willing to let you have the conversation. But it is truly a blessing to have 3 guys of that caliber that make you feel like if these 3 dudes are on, I don't give a damn how y'all splitting the minutes. I don't care if Gigi's playing. I don't care if Jake Laravia is playing. I don't care if Zach Edey ain't playing. I don't care if Brandon Clark is starting. I don't care if Scottie Pippen Jr. is in the backcourt with y'all. If those three guys are cooking like we know they're capable of doing, nothing else really matters for this team.
Tune in to the Anthony Sane Show Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel. Okay, it's my turn now, boys.
It's
Time.
Yeah, you
The
kind
hot
of reminded
stove.
me of the was that Skip Bayless? It's my turn now.
Put your
It's my
glasses back
turn.
on. Put your glasses back on. By the way, I just want to let y'all know we got John Conchar minutes in this Grizzlies game. Yeah, let's freaking go. All right.
Not funny.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Speaking of John Conchar and your Memphis Grizzlies, guys, it has been a Tigers have been playing really well. They've been doing really well. They've number 14 team in the country, I think 16 team in the country. The Grizzlies started off coming out of the post All-Star break, second in the West. Gabe and Christian, they had a pretty horrendous weekend.
Yeah.
Pretty terrible. They are now fourth in the Western Conference behind the LA Lakers, which I think is stunning to me. I didn't know what to expect when they got Luka, to be frank with you. But it's clearly working, and JJ Redick is actually a coach, and they are third in the West behind who's second?
I think the
Denver?
Nuggets and them are tied right now.
They-
The
they-
Lakers
they
have
are
the-
second.
the
They
Lakers
are
have the
technically second.
the tie.
Oh, the Lakers are second now.
The Lakers-
Denver,
Nuggets are third.
Nuggets are third, and then obviously OKC. But it was a rough weekend for the Grizzlies. They faced off against the New York Knicks. Great game, great team. New York Knicks are a tough team. Lost that game, and then came back the next night playing San Antonio, and lost that game. Both of them by pretty insane buzzer beaters. Heartbreaking losses for the Grizzlies. Just rough showings. Through and through. Jaren Jackson Jr. played well, did his thing, did what he needed to do. In the New York Knicks game, Ja Morant came on in the fourth quarter overtime and played well, but just wasn't enough. Guys, let's talk about this weekend. What were y'all's thoughts? Gabe, what were your thoughts on the Grizzlies weekend? What were some of the things that stood out to you?
I have two words: frustration and disappointment. And I'll start with the frustration. The frustration has to do with Taylor Jenkins and his coaching decisions late in games. His end game coaching this weekend was pitiful, like just really bad.
Really
The
bad.
next game, I understand, like Brandon Clark gets slapped in the face and he couldn't play in your closing lineup, so you had to find other ways around it. But Santi Aldama as a closer, that's just not an idea that works. He's a good offensive player. You need defense in your closing lineup to replace the production and switchability and rim protection that Brandon Clark can give you, and the rebounding that Brandon Clark can give you. I thought that was a bad decision. But like, you just look at, like, there was 2 minutes left or so. You're up by 2. You allow a wide open 3 to Jalen Brunson. Right. Okay. One time, fool me once. Shame on you. I don't know. Whatever you want to say.
Whatever
But
the phrase
then they
is.
get down to the end of the game. Ja Morant does a miraculous thing, gets an and one, converts it. You're up by 2 again. Even after they took the Knicks took the 1 point lead on the Jalen Brunson 3. That final sequence by Taylor Jenkins, Vince Williams Jr., Santi Aldama, whatever the decision making was there, was just stupid. You blitz Jalen Brunson on ball when you're up by 2 with 24 seconds to go.
Do we
What's
even consider that a
thing?
blitz?
Can I just ask you this, guys? You guys
Yeah.
are smart guys. If you're up by 2 in a basketball game with
Debatable.
30 seconds to go, 20 some odd seconds to go, what's the one thing you can't allow? One
Probably
thing you can't allow up by 2 with 24 seconds to go.
Probably a three-pointer? is
Yeah,
what I would
you
suspect.
can't allow a
Yeah.
three-pointer. Taylor Jenkins, for some odd reason, decided to tell Vince Williams Jr. to go blitz Jalen Brunson. Santi Aldama has to choose between Karl Anthony Towns in the paint or OG Anunoby at the three-point line. He makes the wrong decision, tries to crowd Karl Anthony Towns right there by the block. Jalen Brunson is a high IQ, good basketball player who can distribute the basketball. You blitz him, he's going to make the right decision most of the time. They bring the blitz. He finds OG Anunoby on the wing. Here's a knockdown three for the Knicks to take a lead. And then from there, you're not going to – Ja gave it all he could, couldn't get the win. But that was just horrid decision-making. Bad scheme in that situation. I couldn't understand that for the life of me. We can also get to the fact that at the end of the third quarter, heading into the fourth, he didn't have Ja, Dez, or Jaren on the floor. What
Why?
the hell is that? Come on.
Why?
Be better. Now, let's also go to my frustration from the Spurs game. Holy shit, dude. You're down 128, 125. You're down by 3. You need a 3. And it was right after De'Aaron Fox got fouled at the three-point line, made 3 free throws. You took a timeout. And you're clearly drawing something up on the sideline if you're a coach, right? Like, that's what you're doing. We're going to get somebody an open 3, likely Jaren Jackson Jr. He's got 39 points tonight, but if he can keep it going. They drew up fucking nothing. It was, what the hell? Jaren bailed you out by hitting a bank shot 3 over a guard on a step back. Just lucky as shit. What was that? It was awful. You had time to draw something up of substance, and you didn't do it. Thought that was horrible. And then the final possession of the game. Tie game. If I'm a coach, and I know my personnel, and I know who their personnel is, who's going to be on ball, who's going to take that shot? Probably the clutch player of the year 2 years ago named De'Aaron Fox. What handedness is De'Aaron Fox? He's a lefty, baby. Right? He's a lefty. Kenny, would you be screaming, don't let him go left at the top of your lungs?
Well, it wasn't would. It wasn't would I.
He was.
I was.
I'd be screaming it as loud as possible. Yet
again,
Jalen Wells, who's been good, just a rookie. I expect him to be smarter in the future about something like that, but he also needs his coach to tell him that. Jalen Wells lets him get left. He does a step back, knocks down a 2-pointer, game over. You lose another one. You lost 2 games by 3 points. It was all avoidable. Now, real quick, let me get to the disappointment part of it. Saturday night game at home against a divisional rival in the Spurs. I know the Spurs don't have Wemby, and they're trying to lose games. They don't really care about winning. To have Ja, Dez, Brandon Clark, to have all those guys sit out at the same time is just it's a slap in the face to a fan base that's trying to support you. A Saturday night game against a divisional opponent, and you run out a starting 5 of Scottie Pippen Jr., John Conchar, Jaren, Santi, and whoever's Jalen Wells. I mean, that's just, come on, brother. Like, fans deserve better than that. That was very disappointing to me.
Yeah. I'll jump in real quick, and then I'll let Kenny get it off his chest, because I know he's wanting to express his dissatisfaction with it. But typically when you look at games like this and it comes down to last second, and I think it was 5 seconds in the Knicks game and 2 seconds in the Spurs game that the last shots were hit. Typically those are just a lot of times it's luck, a lot of times it's tip the cap, and it's just you hit a shot. But it becomes a completely different thing when, like Gabe said, it's avoidable and it's decision making from the coach, and obviously little things from the players as well, but things that like Jalen Wells, allowing De'Aaron Fox to get to his left, that's something that should have been said in the huddle. And we can't say that it wasn't for 100%, but it didn't look like there was much of an emphasis on that. And so it's really frustrating when you think about, okay, these are 2 games that the Grizzlies really should have won, and it was avoidable. If it was just someone chunking something up and hitting the last second shot, and then you go down and miss one, it's like Gabe said, it's tip of the cap. But for it to be decision-making, coaching, and things of that nature that cause back-to-back, like buzzer beater, last-second heartache losses, that's a tough pill to swallow, especially for Grizzlies fans that have been griping about Taylor Jenkins' game management.
And real quick, Kenny, I'm going to let you get it off your chest as well. But good. To think about the Western Conference and how it was placed heading into this weekend, the thing that also adds disappointment to that Saturday night lineup and the guys that were sitting on the bench when they're clearly healthy enough to play is the fact that the Western Conference is really jumbled up, and you could have gotten past, and you allowed yourself to get past. You dropped from 2 to 4, and now you have the Rockets 1 game behind you for 5th. You could drop out of home court. Like that, it's so disappointing. And just, I know this is a stretch, but I'm gonna fuck it. I'm gonna say it anyway. Around the trade deadline, when Marcus Smart was traded, I thought the messaging was the biggest issue I had with it. You didn't make your team better. The only case you could make is that you made your roster worse by having Marcus Smart and Jake LaRavia elsewhere. I felt like this weekend just like kind of highlighted the messaging behind a move like that as well. It's just not a serious contending attitude that I think has been perpetuated by this front office, by this coaching staff time and time again. And maybe we shouldn't have championship expectations yet, but in the reality we live in, Zach Kleiman said, 2 years ago, the expectation is always to win a championship. That's what we're striving for every year. Those words don't mean much when your actions show something different.
Right.
So that's where a lot of my disappointment comes in with the way this team is operating right now.
I think, and Gabe, you pretty much kind of everything that I was going to say in terms of like getting it off my chest is what you were going to say. It's this idea, this mentality with this franchise right now, where you just go, stop telling us, even at the trade deadline, we are about championships. This is our championship window. We are about championships. And Kleiman even said it after the Marcus Smart, Jake LaRavia move, that this is what this is about, right? And the Grizzlies are set and positioned, I think, financially and in a roster construction type of way where they're going to be good for a while, right? But is being good enough?
Right.
Like, are we cool with being good? Like, or are we actually going to fight for championships here in this city?
100%.
Because
well said.
And I think that's my biggest frustration is yes, the front office has made moves to set the Grizzlies up for the future, right? Like Jaren Jackson Jr. is set to make a shit ton of money next year or in the next couple of years, and he deserves every single dollar that comes his way. And the Grizzlies are positioned in a way where they can do this, even as one of the smallest markets in the entire game. They can do it. But I guess my question is are we actually trying to make moves, whether it's in the front office or in the game, in-game coaching moves, that tell me that this Grizzlies team is serious about winning and winning big, winning when it matters? Are we going to be a really good regular season team, or are we going to be a really good, like a championship contention and championship contention? And I think there were a few things that I saw that I just go, this coaching staff isn't ready. This coaching staff is making decisions that tell me they are not ready. Number one, how in the hell do you start John Conchar in that game? You got 20 games left, bro. 20 games.
Play the guys that are going to play in the playoffs. Even if you don't have John, Dez, and the training staff has held them out. Play the guys that are going to play. John Conchar is not going to play. And they didn't start Zach Edey. Lamar Stevens got more minutes than G.G. Jackson. Jay Huff and Cam Spencer are getting minutes. Each of them, get this. This is one of the craziest stats from Saturday night, guys.
Tell this stat. This stat is wild.
Cam Spencer played 5 minutes. Jay Huff played 3. You want to know what each of their plus minus was? Minus 15. They were
minus
combined
15.
Minus 30 in a combined 8 minutes. You know how fucking hard that is to do? Near impossible.
In a game where literally you have the choice to, you can choose to, I'm going to win this game to stay in the position that we're in, or I'm going to continue a free fall out of home court advantage. And the part of it that I just don't understand it, you're not going to play 11, 12 dudes in the playoffs. You're just not going to.
No.
But for some reason, Taylor Jenkins decides we're going to sit Brandon Clark, Desmond Bane, John Morant. Who else is out? Was it just those 3 out in that game, in that San Antonio game?
Yeah.
Those 3 guys are going to sit out. And so then they play Jay Huff. Then they play Cam Spencer. Instead of just going, you know what? Let's just get our guys ready. Like Luke Kennard and Desmond Bane, we've been putting this lineup out there. You guys are the playmakers. When Ja's not out there, you're the playmakers. No, we're going to start Scottie Pippen Jr. We're going to start John Conchar. Like, what are we?
Against a division opponent
On a
without
Saturday
their best
night at
player.
home.
Yeah,
Like,
without their best player.
What are we doing? We're putting out Cam Spencer and Jay Huff for what? Like, why?
Yeah.
Like, why are you playing these
There's
guys?
no explanation that makes sense. Not a single
just-
one.
it's-
Like,
and-
I have protected Taylor Jenkins for a while when it comes to injuries and who he has on the floor and what's available to him. He had more than enough available to him to win that game and not start John Conchar. Yet he did anyway for whatever reason. And can I be honest? Even the people that support Taylor Jenkins are going to look back at this weekend if the Grizzlies get bounced in the first round of the NBA playoffs, depending on matchup. They'll look back at this weekend as, you're going to fire him? Okay, go ahead. Makes sense.
Yeah.
1,000%. This weekend has shifted in terms of perception, right? And
Absolutely.
again, and I would then turn it around on the players. I would turn it around on John Morant, and I would turn it around on Desmond Bane, and I would turn it around on Brandon Clark, and anybody else who's out just for soreness, general soreness, and whatever they're not playing. You have 20 games left.
Right.
20 games. This whole like getting. I need to be
I don't
ready
even
for
know
the
if it's
playoffs.
their decision, though.
But
You know?
listen, if Brevin Knight said this on the Night Court podcast, and I love this clip. He said, at some point, players are going to have to take control of their careers and not allow teams and front offices and medical staffs to pull you out of games. If you really want to play.
Yeah.
And if you don't, it is nut cutting time, boys. Like, if you don't want to play because you're sore, we have to have some serious conversations about where you stand with this franchise, because this is it. Like, this is it. And you tell us all the time that this is what you're about. I'm about championships. I want to win. I want to win. I want to win. It's nut cutting time. Play games. Ja, you haven't played 5 games in a row in 3 seasons.
No, he finally played 5. Now it's 6. Hadn't played 6 games in a row in 3
Oh,
seasons.
is it 6? Okay. Sorry, Ja. I apologize. But it's just like, it's crazy to me, man. Like, if it is the front office, get serious about this team winning. Get serious. Yeah. Stop holding guys out with 20 games left in the season. If it's the players that are making this decision, man up.
It's a mindset
It's time.
thing. It's a mindset thing. You have to switch your mindset. And I want to go to this quote real quick because Taylor Jenkins was talking about the John Morant injury. He's been held out 2 straight games. He was held out at tonight's game. Obviously, it'll be last night's game when this actually publishes. But Taylor Jenkins said the John Morant injury is short-term. It's just lingering soreness. And this is the quote he gave, guys. Tell me if this we're 60 games into the season, 22 games left. Tell me if this makes sense to you. As the season gets deeper, I have faith that John's going to be ready to play whatever he needs, minutes-wise, duration of games, all that. As the season gets deeper,
At the deepest point.
you're 60 games in. Like, how much deeper into the season do you have to be than 60 games in?
To start taking it seriously.
Well, I don't get that quote. As we get deeper into the season, this isn't game 25, brother.
No.
This is game 61.
Yeah.
What do you mean as we get deeper into the season? It's just, again, it's a mindset thing.
And I
they have
recommend
not
anybody
pitch their mindset into let's go for this fucking thing.
And I recommend it. I recommend everybody going and checking out Chris Harrington's Twitter account. He was in that press conference when Taylor Jenkins said that, and he pressed him. He said, basically, in Chris Harrington's way, Chris is an amazing journalist, asked it in a very nice way. I'll say it how it really came out. He's not proven it to us yet. Like, what makes you think it's actually going to happen with Ja, being ready? He's not done it yet. What makes you think it's going to happen now? And Taylor's response was just like, it was just a bunch of gobbledygook nothing. Like, nothing burger. Like, just nothing. Like, there is no proof. The only proof that we have is you getting out there and playing. Like, just go play ball. Like, I just don't understand it. And and shout out to Jaren Jackson for being, just the guy who's shown up day in, day out, every game, playing for this team and dominating and doing what he's doing. But man, it is just that there is frustration for me. There's frustration not only with the players, there's frustration with the front office, frustration with the coaching staff. And it makes me wonder, is this franchise as a whole ready to be one of those teams?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel like they are right now. The decisions they're making, the things that they're doing, they're setting themselves up for the future. But right now, are they one of those contending teams? And it doesn't feel like they operate as a contender. It feels like they operate as we're just going to be really good in the regular season and then just shit the bed in the playoffs. That's what it feels like.
Yep.
No,
All right. Whew. Okay, sorry. Second,
You needed it.
I needed that. Yeah, I needed that. Second topic. Let's get back to the NFL Combine. We talked about the Tigers in the NFL Combine. Y'all broke it down really well. Shout out to Rock and Seth for just showing out, doing what they do. Shout out Seth, man. He's been on the creatine, bro. That man has gotten big. That man got swole. But I read he came in at the same weight he played in, but he just looked. His traps look bigger. His shoulders look bigger.
Those pre-draft sites where guys go to work out, they have a tendency to do that to you.
Yeah,
I can tell you that from experience.
Just get you
get
bowed
nice
out
and
so
lean,
you go.
nice and lean, and they feed you good, clean food every day.
Do you know where he worked out? Where was he working out at?
He was in Fort Myers. Shit.
Hey,
I
Fort
forget
Myers
exactly what it's called, but the guy who runs the thing is Jordan Llewellyn.
Man, yeah.
He used to be based out of Nashville. Now it's Fort Myers.
Awesome. Well, let's get to the rest of the combine. Obviously, we saw Will Howard threw the ball terribly. I want to give me some idea. Like, I didn't get to watch much of the actual combine, but I want you guys to tell me who were some of the winners and losers from the NFL Combine, guys that you were like really paying attention to that impressed you, or you just said, yeah, answered all my questions about why they're probably not going to be a high draft pick.
Yeah, Gabe, why don't we both do our biggest winner and biggest loser?
Okay.
For me, biggest winner is Nick Emanwari from South Carolina. Just blew the combine away. I think going into the combine, he was probably early to mid second round pick. He's a really good safety at the collegiate level. Not the best safety in the draft. Obviously, going into it, that'd be Malachi Starks from Georgia. But he comes into the combine 4.38 40. 43-inch vertical, 11-foot 6-inch broad jump, 20 reps on the bench, and he is 6'3" and 220 pounds. So really just an overall freak of an athlete. And I think we see a lot of these guys and their tape's not good and people get kind of baited into drafting them. Nick Emanwari has good tape. Now, do I think that he's going to jump a little bit higher than he would have went if there was no NFL Combine? Yeah, I do, because people see traits and tools and feel like they can develop those. And clearly, he has incredible traits to be able to pull off those numbers. So, overall, what he did, I think he was the biggest winner. Will probably make the biggest jump as far as the first and second round guy. Obviously, you'll see big jumps from potential late round picks that people may have not heard about as much of that'll jump up higher. But he was my biggest winner, biggest loser to me, and I wasn't a huge fan of this player in the first place as far as translating to the NFL, but Isaiah Bond just dug himself in a hole and did something that it's hard to come back from and hard to understand why he did it.
Why
because
do you promise that?
I don't know. You think about what these guys do in preparation. They run these 40s, and they run these 40s. They know around what time they are. Isaiah Bond goes into it and promises that he's going to run a 4.2, and if he's feeling good, a 4.1, and beat his, Xavier Worthy's 40-yard dash record, and then comes in and runs a 4.4. Gross.
Why do it?
Why?
There's no win.
No, and if you were running those times in preparation for it, maybe I get it, but there's no way you're running those times in preparation and then come in at whatever it was, a 4.4 flat or a 4.39, whatever it was. I don't think it was a 4.39. I think it was a 4.4 flat. But it's just like, why would you do that? Why are you going to come in and promise to break a record and not even get close? If he did that and ran a 4.26 or a 4.27, nobody would say anything. But he ran a 4.4, and his teammate Matthew Golden ran a 4.3. And Matthew Golden wasn't promising to run anything crazy like that. So I just think that was probably just a little out there. It was a bad call. And I don't know how much his stock will fall from it, because I don't think people were looking at him extremely highly anyway. Very highly rated coming out of high school. Started his career at Alabama. Did some decent things there. Had a decent year at Texas, but has never been the standout that he was expected. Now, if he comes in and does run a 4.19 or a 4.18 or a 4.21 or something like that, then yeah, I think we're going to see a catapult and see a stock rise because people see raw speed. But to be a decently undersized wide receiver and not deliver on what you said, not a good look at all. Just kind of a reckless quote from him.
Now my big winner, I'm going to put him in my big winner category because he probably didn't even have to test. Because I think there's a lot of people that have him as either the number 1 or number 2 offensive lineman, no matter what. Probably a top 15 pick, but he tested and he honestly boosted his stock because of it. I'm going to go with Will Campbell from LSU. Came in at 6'6", 319 pounds. There's some questions about his arm length. It's like 33 and 5/8. I thought he interviewed well in front of the press. They asked him about his arm length and a little shorter than normal, not 34-inch arms. He's like, go watch my film. If you can find me a play where I lost, which I did lose, he admitted, like I lost at LSU sometimes, some reps. If you can find me a rep where I lost because of my arm length, I'll go ahead and admit that my arm length is a problem. But obviously that didn't happen. But he ran a 4.98 40, jumped 32-inch on the vert. He was top 5 in broad jump. His athleticism just blew me away. And then when he did on-field workouts, he can bend well, he can move his feet. I really like Will Campbell, and he joined a group of 3 guys, which the other 2 guys, he's one of 3. The other 2 guys I'll bring up in a second, but these are 6'5", 315-plus pounders who ran a sub 540 and jumped over 30 inches in the air in the vert.
Let me get, is one of them Teron Armstead?
No.
No?
Not even Teron Armstead was in this. Trenton Wirfs, Trent Williams. That's a good club to be a part of. I can tell you that right now. We're talking about an 11-time Pro Bowler and a 9-time All-Pro in Trent Williams, and we're talking about a guy who's been a 4-time Pro Bowler in 5 years in Tristan Wirfs, both at the tackle position, both at left tackle now. So I really like my chances with Will Campbell being a good pro, and I also think with him, there's some versatility to his game. Like I think he can be a really good left tackle in the NFL, but you could probably kick him inside.
Yeah.
And he would be a damn good player.
Yeah.
Because he can bend like that, and the athleticism tells us he can do that. And he's in the strength numbers tell us he can do that. So Will Campbell's my big winner. My big loser, I'm going to go to Tez Johnson from Oregon. Brother, you killed yourself. Just what in God's name was that? And here's what I'll say. His agility numbers, 3 cone and 5.10.5, great. Who gives a shit? No one cares. You were 5'10", 154 pounds at weigh-in. I'll say that again, 5'10", 154 pounds at weigh-in. That killed you as is. Yeah. Like you're dropping probably 2 or 3 rounds because of that in itself. But then at that weight and height, he ran a 4.5, middle of the pack wide receiver. You cannot be 154 pounds and not run a 4.3.
No, if you're that small, you got to be Xavier Worthy and run a 4.2.
You got to go Tank Dell. You got to be you can't be a 4.5 flat. Just not acceptable. No. So Tez Johnson is my big loser at the wide receiver position. Now, I do want to bring up one point, sort of a bonus winner that I think you'll agree with. The running back position, really good combine for the running back position from a 40-time standpoint. 10 guys between 4.32 and 4.44. And Bashal Tootin from Virginia Tech ran a 4.32. He's going to move up some draft boards. But I think it highlights what guys want to see, what scouts want to see, what front office members want to see in a running back. They want to see a guy who can hit a home run, take off from the defense, and make big plays happen. And I thought
it's a really good running back class too.
Yeah, I thought most every one of those running backs, especially with their just pure speed numbers, showed, hey, we're here. We can be a good pro running back. Just give us a shot. I think there'll be a lot of running backs off the board in this year's draft.
Yeah, most shocking one to me that was in the 4.4s was Rocket Sanders from South Carolina and previously Arkansas. Like, he is a big dude. I think he only came in at 217, which was crazy because I would have guessed like 235, but I did not have him on my bingo card running a 4.4. But it was like all the top running backs for the most part, outside of I think Caleb Johnson were in the 4.4s, Quinshon Judkins was in the 4.4s, Travion Henderson.
Both the Ohio State guys, Donovan Edwards.
Hampton,
4.4.
Marion Hampton, 4.4 guy. So, yeah, a lot of speed in that running back class.
I know we have talked. We every time we talk NFL draft, NFL combine stuff over the previous years, it's always been about. We talk a lot about quarterbacks, and I wanted to bring the names that are. everybody's talking about, obviously, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. I know they didn't throw at the combine, but it seems like from everything I've read and everything I've heard, they showed themselves out pretty well in communications with teams and things like that.
Yeah.
What are your guys' thoughts on those guys as prospects in the NFL quarterback position?
I think any other year they probably wouldn't be nearly this high. I like both of them, but I think both of them are developmental guys. I think if you give them a year, maybe 2 years, which that's never going to happen in the modern day NFL more than likely. But if you give them some time and don't just throw them out there immediately, they have tools. I mean, you look at Cam Ward, he's got a great arm. He's got good mobility in the pocket. He's extremely patient. He doesn't panic, but he tends to be reckless at times.
Almost to a fault with the non-panic thing.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Like not enough of a sense of urgency. I just think he needs some time. And I know he's been in the collegiate game for a while and he's got a lot of seasoning and he's seen a lot of defenses. I think someone just needs to work with him on his recklessness because he will, roll to his right and throw all the way back to the left. He just needs to work on some of those things. Shedeur, I think he's extremely tough. I think he's extremely accurate. Obviously, I think he lacks elite traits, some of the elite arm strength, just the ball speed and velocity. I think he lacks some of those things, but I think he makes up for it with his accuracy, his ability to take shots, his IQ. Like a comp as far as coming out of college for me with Shedeur, I know he's a little bit smaller than this comp is a little bit smaller than Shedeur. But that's how Drew Brees was at Purdue. Like, he wasn't the biggest arm. He wasn't the biggest guy in general, but he understood defenses. He had high football IQ. He was extremely accurate and made up for the other things that he lacked with that. And I'm not saying Shedeur is Drew Brees, but let's remember Drew Brees was I think a second or third round pick coming out of Purdue. He wasn't super highly sought after. So I think those are kind of similar college comps. But honestly, I think bang for the buck, my favorite quarterback in this draft, and this is crazy for me to say, it might be Jackson Dart. I think he might have some of the highest upside in this class. And I think they're talking about him sneaking into the first round now. You look at just deep ball, what he does with the deep ball, what he does with his arm strength and being able to throw all levels of the field. I think he might sneak into the first round. Yeah. Again, think he needs seasoning, think he needs time. I think all the quarterbacks in this class do. But I think it could be a better quarterback class than people think. If these guys are put in the right situation and given time, that likely will not happen.
All right. I think Cam Ward's QB1 no matter what.
Agreed.
I want to do the Jackson Dart thing. I really do. Because, the film tells me a story. I hate the group thing going on with him, though, right now. It scares the shit out of me, to be quite frank with you.
It's kind of surprising because I've been saying this for a while.
I know. I've been here for a while, but, now that people are really hopping on that bandwagon, it scares the hell out of me. Mm-hmm. I think I got to be honest, man. I think Shedeur didn't do himself favors by not competing this weekend or this week.
Yeah.
Cam Ward, people could try to make the same case about him, but I think he's so thoroughly QB1, according to most front offices, that it didn't really matter. I thought Shedeur Sanders allowed guys like Jackson Dart to go
sneak in
ahead of him. That's what I think happened. I'm kind of disappointed that he decided not to do it, because I think he I think he needed to show maybe a little bit more giddy up on some of those intermediate routes. I think he needed to show, okay, how far can he uncork a deep ball? The raw athletic numbers, I think people are interested in too. Can he escape the pocket and run like he did at Colorado, or is it going to completely be gone at the NFL level? Yeah. I thought not participating kind of hurt him more than it helped him. I didn't really get that, but
agreed.
Yeah, I think I'm sort of right here with Cam Ward QB1, and then sort of we'll dash Shedeur Sanders and Jackson Dart at QB2 for me.
Wow.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, Kenny. Let's get to the third topic. UFC. We haven't talked UFC in a long time, but UFC 313 is happening this weekend. Y'all's favorite fighter, my second favorite fighter behind John Jones. Alex Pereira is fighting Magomed Ankalaev for the light heavyweight title in Las Vegas. guys, is this? I mean, Magomed Ankalaev is a guy who's 20-1, 21-1 in his career. Has just been a killer in every fight he's had. I mean, he's just dominated everybody. But we're talking Alex Pereira here, right? Like Alex Pereira, we're expecting Alex to take him out pretty easily, right?
Yeah, that would be my expectation. He's just so good, and Ankalaev could potentially give him trouble with wrestling because that's really what he's known for. So we'll see how Pereira does on the bottom. That's the only thing that worries me. So I'm not going to say Alex 100% wins this fight because anytime you face someone as good as getting people on the ground as Magomed Ankalaev, especially if you're a striker like Alex Pereira, you're in a little bit of danger. But if anybody can keep him at distance, it's Alex with the kicks and everything. But I'm overall just kind of disappointed again by this card. Like Gaethje and Hooker would have been an awesome co-main. It fell out. And Gaethje and Fiziev is fine, but we've seen that before, and it wasn't the best Gaethje fight. It was probably Gaethje's best performance, but it wasn't like the most exciting Gaethje fight. Hooker would have forced Gaethje to mix it up and make it ugly, and it just would have been a brawl. So I don't know. It's just we're kind of in a string of just disappointing UFC cards right now, and this, to me, this falls in line with it. Like, I'm just not very fired up about it.
I will say the Bahamundez Jalen Turner fight is going to be a fun fight. It's going to be a fun fight.
It's not one that like makes you buy a pay-per-view.
No, oh hell no.
Like, I love watching Jalen Turner, but it's not like.
I bet most people who are watching to this point in the show said, "What what just came out of his mouth? Who are those guys?"
Yeah, exactly.
Hate to say
Who?
it, unless
I get it.
You would just.
I would hope that anybody who's paying attention to the end of the show at this far into the show, I would tell you, if you love, we're trying to help you like the UFC.
Right. We can be honest,
right?
though.
Yeah.
Like, you have to have big names. You have to have, street
Superstars.
appeal. Like, guys that are out there in the public eye to sell. If you're the UFC, that's very much the problem they've had so far this year. They had some canceled fights and guys that are being inactive right now, guys that are injured, and that's a problem for them. But you just to really maximize your sport, you need big names.
Yeah,
I agree, and it makes me wonder because obviously the UFC came under the banner of a company called TKO. TKO is the parent company now for the UFC, for the WWE, and they've gone public. Right, so there's, they're a publicly traded company now, which means everything is about the stockholders and all that kind of stuff. The TKO executive, the CEO, I think his name is Mark Shapiro, the president of TKO, came out today and he said, kind of not word for word, but he said there is no difference between UFC Apex events and stadium shows, and hinted at less stadium shows and more Apex cards. Now, to help people who don't watch the UFC understand, UFC Apex is a small venue in Las Vegas that the UFC owns, where during COVID, they built it during COVID, so they continue to have fights. And there wasn't a lot of people there. It's max capacity, like maybe 1,000 people, right? Like maybe 2,000 people. Not even that much. But they have. Is it not even? They have. It's very. Oh, is it only that much?
Yeah,
wow.
It's small.
Small venue. They do a lot of the fight night stuff there. It became really popular during COVID because they could actually have fights. And what this executive is saying is that like on TV, you can't tell the difference, right, between stadium events and between the Apex events, which means they usually travel all over the world doing stadium events, right, selling out arenas. Every time Dana gets up on the press, he's like, "We broke every record in this, arena," that kind of stuff. Well, now they're saying you just can't tell a difference. So we're probably going to do more Apex fights. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, my thought is, first of all, he must not watch the product that he invests in.
Yeah.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It just shows a clear misunderstanding of the product that you're trying to invest in. Like, of course, it's different. You can absolutely tell a difference in the Apex versus, any other arena that, like T-Mobile in Vegas. Like, there's a huge difference when they do the overseas stuff and they're in England. It's completely different. So that's the biggest issue I have with him saying this. Like, a complete misunderstanding, and it shows that you probably don't watch as much as you should. You don't understand the product. as much as you should, because there's a massive difference. And I think it's dumb. Like, I guess if you're doing like a random fight night, like the one this weekend, Manel Cape is your headliner. Sure. Yeah, go to the Apex. Who gives a shit? No one cares. You know, that's fine. But if you get like a decent name in any main event, go put it in the city and sell out an arena, because you sell it out every time. And I don't know if anybody has ever taken a gander at UFC fights and what it takes to go, get a ticket. I tried to go to Bridgestone for a UFC event. They had a fight night there. $135 for just a fight night. This isn't a numbered card. Like, I think that to maximize their sport, you need to get to different cities, and you need to get those ticket sales, because that's going to generate plenty of revenue. Now, I understand going and dealing with those arenas and having to pay to get your event in there probably costs a little bit more overhead. The Apex is just about free probably for them. But
it is.
But again, like, when it comes to the health of your sport, getting in front of the most fans nationwide and worldwide, fighting in the Apex it makes it so much less serious than when they're in a big ass arena in I don't know, in Anaheim or in Nashville or in London, or just pick your city. I mean, I hate the fact that this is the way that they want to go, because they're trying to answer for their shareholders.
Yeah, I'll make it short and sweet, because Gabe pretty much nailed that, and then we'll wrap this up. But and I think Gabe was really saying this, but just to kind of condense it a little bit, what makes a big fight a big fight? What dictates that? What dictates a big fight being a big fight? And we all know it because we're big UFC fans. It's when you're sitting on the couch with all your buddies, and the main event comes on, and everybody shuts up a little bit, and you just hear just the ad nauseum crowd just pushing. That's what makes a fight feel big. The fans make the fights feel big, not who's on the card. Yes, I mean, for some hardcore fans, you see a big name, it's a big fight, but it's the environment that the fight is held in. It's the way that the fans react to the fights. It's the back and forth engagement. It's the chanting. It's the cheering as the walkouts happen. That's what makes big UFC pay-per-views fun, and even big fight nights fun, for that matter. No crowd, especially for casual fans, like, fight nights aren't fun without fans. It just feels too serious and too buttoned up and corporate. It's just not as fun and not as good of a time with no fans there. So I appreciated the Apex for what it was when it needed to happen, and it gave us something to watch during a time when we didn't have much else to watch in the area of sports. But like Dana said, for the last couple of years, like, we want to go everywhere, we want to be everywhere, and we want to move away from being in the Apex.
And you have to wonder if this is Dana's freaking out a little bit right now.
I mean, he's got to be pissed about it.
This feels like a split judgment by shareholders, because they're not getting the returns that they once were. And there's a reason they're not getting it, is because they haven't had that many good cards because of various different reasons. Right. But I can tell you this. If you take those same shitty cards and put them in the Apex, you're going to make way less money.
100%.
I just, and you're also not going to generate a tenth of the interest.
Right.
So
bringing in new fans,
I find this to be a split second reaction that will actually hurt them in the long run if they decide to do this.
Well, and I'll close it out with this. He said it later on in the interview. He said, word for word, said, our margin could be higher if we decided to do less international domestic touring UFC events and do them at the Apex where we own the arena. I have a hot take. And
thinking short term there, buddy.
Yeah, thinking short. I have a hot take. I think that if they do this, if TKO, their management group, their partners, everybody, if they decide to do this with the UFC, you can start to get the countdown of when Dana White retires from the UFC. I think that it will be. Yeah. I think it will be done for him. I think this is why
it's hard to go corporate in this day and age.
Yes.
Yeah. If people start telling him what to do, and it's differing.
People that have the money that pay for your sport to bring it under their umbrella They don't necessarily know your sport like you know your sport. And they will make
or they would never say
second
that.
decisions based on money that will
Right.
be to the detriment of your sport. And this is why it's just way too bottom line based and
Yes.
not rooted in, you know,
Long-term
the times and the reality. It's all short-term boom and no long-term vision.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. And I agree with you. If this ends up happening, I wonder if we're going to see an expedited way for Dana White to get the hell out.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. All right, boys. Well, let's excuse me. Let's wrap this one up. If you are watching on YouTube, you can like, subscribe, and comment there. If you're listening via podcast, whether that's Apple, Spotify, or any other platform, you can do the same there. You can also go to bluffcitymedia.co, check out all the articles, podcasts, and videos on the site. Once again, we appreciate you guys for joining us, and we will see you back here next week.
Thank you for listening to On the Bluff. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. Head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co for comprehensive coverage of Memphis sports and how you can become an insider.